quote. And yet, despite the consensus among our intelligence agencies, President-elect Trump has remained persistently skeptical. During the first presidential debate, he wondered aloud whether the responsible party could be China or, quote, somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds. Last month, he called reports of Russian hacking, quote, ridiculous, and, quote, another excuse for the democratic loss. He said, quote, it could be somebody sitting in a bed someplace, again. I mean, they have no idea. And even after the release of the declassified report, the president has really yet to acknowledge Russia's role in the hacking. You said earlier that you accept the FBI's conclusion. To my mind, it's absolutely extraordinary to see a president-elect so publicly refuting and without evidence, so far as I can tell, the assessment of our intelligence agencies. Why do you think President-elect Trump has been so unwilling to acknowledge Russian involvement in the hacking?
I did mean to indicate I respect the FBI, and I respect the fact that if they give a conclusion, they believe it's accurate. But I'm not able to comment on the President-elect's comments about it.
Okay. CNN has just published a story, and I'm telling you this about a news story that's just been published. I'm not expecting you to know whether or not it's true or not. But CNN just published a story alleging that the intelligence community provided documents to the president-elect last week that included information that, quote, Russian operatives claimed to have compromising personal and financial information about Mr. Trump. These documents also allegedly stated, quote, there was a continuing exchange of information during the campaign between Trump surrogates and intermediaries for the Russian government. Now, again, I'm telling you this as it's coming out, so, you know. But if it's true, it's obviously extremely serious. And if there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Very well. Without divulging sensitive information, do you know about this or know what compromising personal and financial information the Russians claim to have?
Senator Franken, allegations get made about candidates all the time, and they've been made about President-elect Trump lots of times. Most of them, virtually all of them, have been proven to be exaggerated or untrue. I would just say to you that I have no information about this matter. I have not been in on the classified briefings, and I'm not a member of the Intelligence Committee. And so I'm just not able to give you any comment on it at this time.
Okay, totally fair. Last week, Julian Assange, the founder of Wikileaks, claimed that the Russian government was not the source of the hacked emails WikiLeaks published during the campaign, that they published during the campaign. Now, Assange did not identify his source, nor did he say whether his source worked with or received information from the Russians. But again, American intelligence agencies have concluded the Russian government directed the hacking operation. Nonetheless, immediately following that interview, President-elect tweeted, quote, Julian Assange said a 14-year-old could have hacked Podesta. Why was DNC so careless? Also said Russians did not give him the info, exclamation point. Senator Sessions, does it concern you that our future commander-in-chief is so much more willing to accept what Julian Assange says instead of the conclusions of our intelligence agencies? And why do you think President Trump finds Assange trustworthy?
Senator Franken, I'm not able to answer that. I've not talked to the President-elect about any of these issues, and it is often inaccurate what gets printed in the papers.
Well, back in 2010, back when Wikileaks was publishing stolen American diplomatic cables and military secrets, you voiced concern about the Obama administration's response. You said that WikiLeaks publishing sensitive documents should be, quote, pursued with the greatest intensity. You said, quote, the president from on down should be crystal clear on this, and I haven't seen that. I mean, he comes out of the left, the anti-war left. They've always glorified people who leak sensitive documents. Now he's the commander-in-chief, so he's got a challenge. President-elect Trump, by contrast, said, quote, WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Do you believe that by holding up Julian Assange, who traffics in leaked and stolen documents, often classified documents, as a legitimate source of information, that President-elect Trump is glorifying people who leak sensitive documents?
Well, I will say this, that if Assange participated in violating the American law, then he is a person subject to prosecution and condemnation.
Well, we know that in regard to what he did in 2010, and yet the President-elect said, WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Doesn't it seem like perhaps if you weren't sitting before us today as an Attorney General nominee, and if President Obama was publicly embracing Julian Assange, that perhaps you might take a more critical view?
As a member of the Senate, as you and I remain for hopefully not too much longer, depends on you and your colleagues, but I feel it's a lot easier to be vigorous and outspoken. If you begin to think about the awesome responsibility of serving as an Attorney General with the possibility of having to handle certain cases, you need to be more cautious about what you say. So I think it's just not appropriate for me to be the person for you to seek political responses from.
Senator
Okay,
Cruz.
I am out of time. I will try to stick around for one more quick round.
Okay, Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sessions, thank you for your endurance today. Thank you. Let's turn to a different topic, one that's been addressed some in this hearing, but one that I know is a particular passion of yours and one on which you built a remarkable record, and that's immigration. And I want to focus in particular on the problem of criminal aliens in the United States and this administration's non-enforcement of the laws. And take a moment just to review some of the numbers, which you know very well, but I think it's helpful to review for those watching this hearings. We have had an administration that consistently refuses to enforce our immigration laws. So in October 2015, ICE admitted that there were 929,684 aliens present in the United States who had been ordered to leave the country, but who hadn't done so. And of those over 929,000 aliens with removal orders, 179,027 had criminal convictions. In addition to the 179,027 criminal aliens with final orders of removal, there were at least 194,791 known criminal aliens who were at the time in removal proceedings. And we also know that 121 criminal aliens released by ICE between fiscal year 2010 and 2014 went on to commit homicides. And between fiscal year 2009 and fiscal year 2015, ICE released 6,151 aliens with sexual offense convictions from its custody. My question for you, Senator Sessions, is can you commit to this committee and to the American people that as Attorney General you will enforce the laws, including the federal immigration laws, and you will not be releasing criminal illegal aliens into the public, especially those with violent convictions such as homicide or sexual assault convictions.
Senator Cruz, you and I have talked about this, and you know that I believe we have failed in dealing with criminal aliens. President Obama set that as a priority, but I don't think they've been as effective as needed. I believe that should be increased and stepped up, the priority of that. The actual policies, as you know, are Homeland Security policies. The Secretary of Homeland Security will determine those policies. There are ways in which the Department of Justice can fulfill a role in it, but the overall policies and priorities would be set by Homeland Security. I just believe that as we go forward and we reduce the flow of illegal immigrants into America, then there are few people illegally per investigative officer, and you get a better handle. You're in a virtuous cycle instead of this dangerous cycle that we're in today where things tend to get worse. So I believe we can turn that around. This is one of the policies that has to be given priority. Donald Trump has also said that he believes criminal aliens obviously should be the top priority. And all of us, I believe this government will work effectively to deal with it. I would do my part.
You know, there are few issues that frustrate Americans more than the refusal to enforce our immigration laws. And not too long ago, I was down on the border in Texas, visiting with Border Patrol officials, visiting with law enforcement, local sheriffs. And I'll tell you, it was after the election, and there was a palpable sense of relief that finally we would have an administration that didn't view the laws as obstacles to be circumvented, but rather an administration that would be willing to enforce the laws in the books and stop releasing criminal aliens in communities where the citizens are at risk. You know, one of the most tragic instances that we're all familiar with is Kate Steinle, beautiful young woman in California who lost her life, who was murdered by a criminal illegal alien who had 7 prior felonies. And yet, over and over and over again, the system failed. And young Kate Steinle lost her life in her father's arms, saying, "Daddy, please save me." You and I are both the fathers of daughters, and I cannot think of a more horrific experience than having to hold your daughter at that moment of agony. Can you share, this has been an issue you've been leading for so long, can you share your perspective as to the responsibility of the federal government to keep the